The second you defend yourself, you've already lost. Why? Because defense is confession dressed as explanation. Every word you utter to justify is a silent admission that the other side controls the frame. The strong never explain. They never justify. They never plead for understanding. They let silence do what words cannot: burn. In the game of power, perception is reality, and the one who defends hands over their power before the battle even begins. Think back to the last time someone accused you, mocked you, or twisted your words. You felt the pressure, the room turned, the eyes waited, the silence demanded you respond. And you defended, you explained. You tried to clear the air, but instead of clearing it, you thickened it. The doubt lingered. The accuser walked away stronger, while you walked away lighter, not because of relief, but because you had just given your authority away. Now imagine if instead you stood in that silence, unshaken, forcing the world to wonder what you knew that they didn't. If you want to master this power, the Machiavellian art of never defending, of seizing the frame and forcing others to bend to your presence, stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to hear will rewire the way you respond to every attack, every accusation, every test of status. Welcome to Curiosity to Wisdom, where illusions die and strategies are born. In the theater of power, the moment you defend yourself, you are no longer the protagonist. You've been reduced to a supporting actor in someone else's script. Every defense is a silent contract. Your accusation has merit, and I'm obligated to answer it. That contract is poison. He who explains submits. He who justifies shrinks. Machiavelli himself warned that rulers should avoid appearing defensive, for it implies weakness, fear, and dependence on public approval. The powerful know this truth. Perception is everything, and perception shifts instantly. When you defend, you signal guilt, even if you are innocent. The strong understand that the crowd does not follow facts, they follow aura. Silence, presence, and composure are worth more than the most carefully crafted rebuttal. So what do you do when attacked? Nothing. You let the fire burn itself out. And while the weak scramble to justify, the strong stand like stone, their stillness cutting deeper than any counter-argument could. Here is the trap most fall into. They believe the goal is to be understood. They rush to clarify, to prove that they meant well, to assure that they were misinterpreted. But understand this: the desire to be understood is a desire to be controlled by others' perceptions. A Machiavellian mind plays a different game, not clarity, but control. Whoever frames the narrative wins. If you rush to explain, you enter the other person's frame. You're reacting to their script. But if you resist the urge, if you hold silence or calmly reframe, the power flips. Imagine this. Someone calls you arrogant. The naive defend. I'm not arrogant, I'm just confident. But the strategist smiles and says nothing, or simply replies, "Is that how you see it?" Suddenly, the accuser is trapped in their own frame, forced to fill the silence, forced to justify themselves. You've shifted the burden, not by proving yourself right, but by refusing to validate their accusation at all. Picture a room filled with colleagues, the air humming with casual chatter and subtle rivalries. Then, suddenly, the tension cracks when someone directs a sharp jab at you. Maybe you're not as prepared as you think. The words hang in the air like a blade, and instantly the atmosphere changes. The room falls silent, heads turn, and eyes fix on you, waiting for your reaction. This is the moment where most people collapse under the weight of the spotlight. Panic rushes in. They feel compelled to explain, to justify, to reclaim their image with a hurried string of words. But in doing so, they don't repair their standing. They destroy it. The frantic defense validates the attack. Every syllable, every justification makes the insult appear more accurate. The attacker wins without lifting another finger. But the strategist of the mind does something entirely different. No twitch of the lips, no dart of the eyes, no fidgeting hands. Just stillness. The gaze is calm, deliberate, and unreadable, like a stone unshaken by waves. In that silence, a shift occurs. What looked like a blow aimed at you transforms into a test of the attacker's own composure. The audience, once expecting a clash of words, now grows restless in the vacuum you've created. Their curiosity becomes a weapon in your hands. They begin to whisper inwardly, "Why isn't he defending? Does he know something we don't? Is he secure enough not to care? Or is he simply too powerful to bother with such petty attacks?" The silence, more than any clever rebuttal, begins to work on the attacker's mind. They start to sweat. The confidence that carried their jab suddenly falters because your lack of reaction denies them the validation they crave. Instead of proving themselves sharp and dominant, they appear insecure, desperate for attention, and perhaps even weak. Your refusal to enter their frame flips the script. The room no longer sees you as the one under judgment. It sees you as the quiet authority, the judge of everyone else. Words often chain you to the expectations of others. Silence, on the other hand, frees you and forces the room to lean in. It doesn't defend, it dominates. In that tense stillness, the balance of power shifts, and without lifting a single word, you have already won. The most dangerous counter to any accusation is not a defense, but an inversion. Defense, by its very nature, grants power to the accuser. You accept their frame, their rules, their implied authority over your image. The moment you scramble to prove innocence, you step into the courtroom they have built, and worse, you agree to play the role of the defendant. But inversion rejects that entire game. With a calm, almost dismissive detachment, you turn the spotlight back onto the accuser, not through confrontation, but through indifference. Just 3 words are enough, if that's how you see it. That phrase does something profound. It refuses the frame entirely. You do not contest their claim, but you also do not validate it. You deny them the satisfaction of pulling you into their arena. More importantly, you subtly communicate that their opinion holds no weight. It is not the truth you acknowledge nor the lie you resist. It is simply their perspective, as meaningless to you as the rustling of leaves in the wind. In that moment, you signal absolute composure, a self-possession so complete that their words dissolve against you. The psychology at play is devastating. The accuser expects tension. They expect resistance, a counterstrike, or at least a stammering denial that proves their ability to provoke. When none of that comes, when their verbal blade cuts into smoke, they collapse inward. Doubt creeps in. Was my attack too weak? Did I miss something? Why isn't this person fighting back? Certainty fractures like glass under pressure. They feel smaller, exposed, and oddly foolish for having tried. Meanwhile, the audience, the silent jury in every public exchange, is struck by something deeper. They are not impressed by clever arguments or elaborate defenses. They are impressed by the unshakable presence of someone who treats an attack as beneath them. They ask themselves, why that kind of person is so unbothered, so untouchable, that they can brush off accusations without even lifting a finger. That question alone builds a myth around you. This is the art of inversion, a refusal to kneel, a refusal to validate, a refusal to even play the game. With one detached phrase, you transform their weapon into your shield, and in the eyes of everyone watching, you emerge untouchable. That is frame control in its purest form. The clever strategist knows the power of restraint. Words often obscure truth, but silence exposes desperation. When you refuse to defend, something fascinating happens. The accuser feels compelled to repeat themselves. They sharpen their tone, escalate their attack, hoping to force you into reaction. But every repetition weakens them. Every escalation makes them look unstable. Consider a business meeting. Someone questions your competence. Instead of defending, you sit back, calm, collected. They sense your lack of response and push harder, their voice rising, their arguments frantic. The room shifts. They appear emotional, you appear composed. The same applies in relationships. Your partner hurls accusations, expecting rebuttal. You simply listen, nod, and let silence answer. Soon, they realize they're performing alone. They've become the clown in their own circus. In the court of perception, the jury sides with composure. And here, I'll remind you, if you're gaining real value from these strategies, subscribe now to Curiosity to Wisdom, where I give you the tools no one else dares to. There exists a higher level beyond silence, the art of vanishing. Where silence within the room commands attention, absence itself reshapes the entire battlefield. Sometimes the strongest move is not to hold still while others wait for your reaction, but to remove your presence entirely. You don't reply, you don't block, you don't engage. You simply vanish, leaving your accuser stranded in a void of their own making. This is the turn of the blade, allowing their momentum, their frantic energy, to carry them into exhaustion and collapse. They swing, but each strike cuts only through air. With every attempt to provoke, their desperation becomes more visible, while your absence becomes more powerful. In arguments, this tactic is devastating. Most attackers thrive not on truth, but on attention. Their accusations and barbs are fishing hooks designed to drag you into their frame. But when you refuse the bait, not even pulling against the hook, but never touching the line at all, they are left thrashing alone. What looks like retreat is actually suffocation. They crave validation, a sign of life from you to justify their performance, yet they are denied the one thing they need: acknowledgement. Slowly, they spiral downward, their words sounding less like sharp daggers and more like the ramblings of someone arguing with a ghost. Consider this in business. A rival may attempt to undermine you publicly or online, throwing shade or manufacturing criticism. The instinct of most people is to defend, to argue, to counter, but the strategist chooses absence. You never mention their name, never dignify their attack, never even appear to notice. As they grow louder, you grow more untouchable. To the onlookers, the contrast is striking. One party is consumed by noise, the other radiates calm indifference. Over time, the absence itself becomes a presence. You are remembered as the one who says, "Oh, didn't need to fight." The same applies in relationships or online debates. To vanish is not to run. It is to dominate through starvation. You deprive your opponent of oxygen, the lifeblood of attention, until they suffocate on their own effort. You become the ghost they cannot strike, the shadow they cannot reach. And in the end, it is not you who falls. It is they who collapse under the unbearable weight of their own desperation. Here's a truth that shatters many illusions. The harder you chase innocence, the more you signal guilt. Human psychology is wired to distrust over explanation. When someone rushes to defend themselves, piling on justification after justification, the mind of the listener quietly concludes, why are they trying so hard? What are they hiding? It doesn't matter if the person is completely innocent. The mere spectacle of desperation plants the seed of doubt. Reputation, like glass, cracks not from the blow itself, but from the frantic polishing that follows. The strategist plays an entirely different game. Instead of panicked rebuttals, they employ the art of restraint, specifically the 2-second pause. When accused, they do not react instantly, because instant reactions betray insecurity. They breathe. They wait. They let the silence stretch just long enough for the tension to swell in the room. Then, with surgical calm, they drop a single line, not a defense, not a denial, but a reframe. Perhaps they tilt their head slightly and say, "You seem emotional today," or with a faint, detached smile. Interesting perspective. In that single moment, the balance of power is reversed. The accuser, who expected resistance, is suddenly the one exposed. Their attack now looks less like confidence and more like instability. This works because people rarely remember the exact content of an exchange. They do not catalogue every word. They register the emotional impression. And impressions are everything. A frantic defense leaves behind the stench of weakness. A calm pause followed by a cutting one-liner leaves behind the aura of superiority. The details fade, but the feeling remains. One person looked desperate, the other looked composed and in control. The wise never waste breath chasing the fragile reputation of being good. Goodness is fragile because it depends entirely on the approach. Vile of others and approval shifts with the winds of perception. Instead, they cultivate the reputation of being strong. Strength requires no permission, no justification, no applause. It radiates naturally from composure, from silence, from precision in speech. And strength, not goodness, is what commands respect, breeds loyalty, and silences opposition. In the hierarchy of human psychology, those seen as good may be liked, but those seen as strong are obeyed. In the digital age, silence alone can be misinterpreted as weakness, unless that silence carries the weight of fear. Online, perception isn't subtle, it's magnified, amplified, and endlessly replayed. A single comment can spread like wildfire, echoed by strangers who know nothing of you, yet feel entitled to judgment. In this arena, the old tools of reputation crumble. You cannot rely solely on absence because absence is often rewritten by others into their own narrative. Instead, you must distort. You don't defend, you redefine. You take their accusation and twist it into a mirror that reflects not your fragility, but your power. Imagine a commenter sneering, "You're manipulative." The naive person, eager to appear clean, replies with the predictable line, "I'm not manipulative." But this does nothing except validate the frame. You've accepted their terms, agreed to their courtroom, and begged for acquittal. The strategist never plays that game. Instead, the response slices with controlled ambiguity. People call you dangerous when they can't control you. Instantly, the entire tone shifts. You are no longer on trial. You are no longer the accused. You are the one defining what the accusation means, bending it into an aura of strength. This is how digital warfare is fought. Silence as the default stance, deflection to redirect fire, and precision cuts that turn insult into myth. The goal is never to argue with critics or trolls. That only feeds them, gives them oxygen. The goal is to force them into proving your strength with every attack they hurl. The more they shout, the more they confirm your power, because you've already reframed their hostility as evidence of your dominance. Their noise becomes your legend. And legends online are never built through clean, polite defenses. They are built through distortion, through the deliberate warping of perception, so that every insult becomes proof of inevitability. In this space, clarity is weakness because clarity invites counter-argument. Distortion, however, creates mystery, and mystery breeds power. The more they try to pin you down, the more you slip through their fingers, until all that remains is the echo of your strength. In the endless battlefield of digital perception, those who defend vanish. Those who distort endure. There is a reason the old strategist declared, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Love is fragile, dependent on constant reassurance and approval, but fear, when tempered with respect, creates a fortress around you. The predictable man, the transparent man, is always the easiest to control. His words are open books. His reactions are roadmaps. His intentions are glass walls. You can see him, anticipate him, and manipulate him with ease. But the man who is misunderstood, the one whose motives cannot be fully measured, becomes untouchable. Uncertainty is armor. Confusion forces others to tread carefully, to hesitate, to second-guess themselves before moving against you. Consider the psychology at play. When you defend, you explain. When you explain, you surrender your inner world to the judgment of others. You shrink yourself into their frame, and in doing so, you strip away the aura of unpredictability that protects you. The more you clarify, the smaller you become. But mystery reverses this process. Mystery enlarges. It fills the imagination of others, making you appear more powerful, more dangerous, and more compelling than you might even be in reality. A vague storm on the horizon inspires more caution than a sunny sky, because storms can shift, strike, and destroy without warning. Better to be the storm that no one can map than the harmless predictability of perfect clarity. In the games of power, predictability is a death sentence. Your enemies can only exploit what they can anticipate. To be misunderstood, misjudged, or even feared is not a curse. It is protection. In the shadows of uncertainty, you move freely. You can strike when least expected, or you can refrain entirely, letting your mere presence dominate the room. Silence, ambiguity, and selective expression make you a puzzle no one can solve, and the human mind fears puzzles it cannot complete. To defend is to explain. To explain is to surrender. But to remain enigmatic, to cultivate an aura of mystery that resists categorization, is to command control without effort. True strength is not always in being known for what you are. It is in being ungraspable, the figure others respect precisely because they cannot define you. In the theater of perception, mystery is not weakness. It is the highest form of control. Here is the final evolution. Stop fighting to be seen as good. That battle is endless and worse. It makes you weak. Instead, build a reputation for being strong. Goodness bends. Strength commands. Goodness defends. Strength decides. In time, your silence becomes more powerful than any explanation, because it is no longer silence. It is choice. People will speak for you. Rumors will circulate. Defenders will rise in your absence. And from this silence, something rare begins to form. Aura. Aura is not built on facts. It is built on mystery, composure, and presence. You no longer need to defend because existence itself becomes your defense. Your reputation is not fragile, not negotiable, not subject to accusation. It is untouchable. And that is the true Machiavellian art of frame control. To reach a state where you answer to no one, and yet everyone answers to you.